who is going to take us to another aspect, which is the utilization and the usage of artificial intelligence now within education. Dr. Rawad, the floor is yours. You'll have 15 minutes to make your presentation, and then we will move on to the following presenters to close with our question answer sessions. Please, our audience, prepare your questions for our speakers. There are a lot of things to say regarding this session. Dr. Rawad, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anji. Thanks, Dr. Alam, for the invitation. And thanks also, Professor Manuel, for the nice memory words. So welcome everyone to this session. I really enjoyed vast events in the past, and I will continue to be part of this community. Let me start my presentation now by sharing my screen first, and then putting the timer on to keep myself on the time. Okay, so we're going to talk today about a very good concept that we can use in order to minimize the disruption.
Dr. Rawad, sorry,
yeah.
Can you use the, can you show the
sure.
slides? Yeah, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that better now?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Good. Thank you so much for the invitation again. So what I'm going to cover today, and next what would have been told to us by Dr. Manuel, a lot of disruption happening for our educational environment, so we'd like to minimize that. And that's the main reason why do we need to use AI, artificial intelligence, in education. I personally teach a lot of students in one module, and that kind of interaction, on-campus interaction, where we can talk to students, explain things to them, is not possible to happen online. Why? Because I can respond to one question probably in less than a minute on class or on campus. Now this cannot happen because I need to read the email, I need to prepare my reply, and then I need to reply to that student. And one of my modules, I have a lot of teaching assistants, but I have more than 300 students. And in that modules, we can't respond to students' emails. Even if you distribute the group to different teaching assistants, there are a lot of disruption that's gonna happen. Again, the uncertainty we have impose more restrictions on us in terms of delivery, in terms of structuring our modules, and so on. And bearing in mind what have been also said by Dr. Manuel about the structure and keep the task smaller, you need to keep the balance between the smaller task and the deepness of the knowledge that you need to convey to students. So in order to solve all of these kind of issues, there is no key, I would call rocket science that will solve all of these kind of problems, but we can try to use advanced technologies in order to make our learning experiences more fruitful with students. So here the AI will come to us. Now again, futuristic solution, again focus on the sustainable development goal, mainly the one related about quality of education, and also the number 8 goal, decent work through our environments. Again, a lot of challenges are happening during the last couple of years or last 1 year now. We need to focus more about what we have in terms of the sustainable development goals here, especially for goal number 4, which is quality education, and also goal number 8. So I'll focus on goal number 4 about quality of education. What we have done here in order to maintain our work with students is just to look at the student, how they are learning in online environments. We managed to look back, evaluate what we have done on campus before this pandemic. We got some figures from national student surveys, from other kind of student impacts, other kind of discussion, other folks group. We've documented that in different ways. And then we managed to say what we are doing at the moment on campus and online is not at that same level. Why? Some of that is back to students. Some of this is due to the environment and platform technologies we have. They are not very flexible. Some of these kind of challenges are also back to our way of working as lecturers. So I'm teaching, for example, software engineering module. I haven't designed my module for online delivery, okay? We used to go to campus, teach our student, and student interact with us. We group them into different groups. We ask them to interact with each other. All the tools we have at the moment cannot allow us to do that. And if the tool allows us to do that, the other platform or other infrastructure most likely is restricted. So we have some broadband issues at home, and similarly students have that. You can't ask students to embed a lot of technologies in their house because they are not prepared to work from their home in the way that they are prepared to work from campus. They can't fit their cameras all the time on their laptops. They are not ready to sit at home in a very comfortable way and talk to you when you talk to them. Again, there are some other issues related to the privacy and the way we manage classes online. And the solution for some of these problems is to use advanced technologies like artificial intelligence to know more about our students and also to customize our work procedures, our work strategies to improve their learning experiences. So we came up with what we call here disconnected. These are the key challenges we have. Disconnected educational system, because we have, I think, most of the universities now, they are using Microsoft Teams or Zooms. Okay, they are using Moodle or other virtual learning environment. They are using their own educational system like student record system and other stuff. And they are using a lot of e-portfolio systems. So these systems are disconnected. And even if they are integrated technically, there is no such features to recognize that Rawad as a student in software engineering module have been interacting very good in that module. So let's try to get that kind of knowledge and recommend different resources for him from the library system. There is no such feature for that. And there are a lot of disconnectivity between these systems. So we need to solve that issue in a way or another. Again, that issue is going to replicate more if students are doing, for example, undergrad and then they move to postgraduate student. We lost all the information about them and so on. Stakeholders are totally separate. We don't work together as we have been doing on campus last year or the year before. I don't meet my colleague. I have a teaching team, big teaching team in one of my module that I've never met. We do some online meetings, but that online meeting is not going to reflect and transform all the skill that we are looking for. Also, the communities we have a big TA communities now at the moment at the university. They are not also gaining the benefit of joining the academic environment and getting more skills. So our graduates at the end of the day, they have a lot of disruption even when they left the university and they go to work. They have a lot of skills that they need to learn. And this has been discussed with one of the key industry that we've been working with. Okay, so just a reflection about the differences between student and between the generations. So we have different generations here without referring to the age of any one of the audience here. There are different generations here. And these generations are just very, very high level differences between student having some kind of ages. So people from 60 to 75, I guess I can use my pointer here. Yeah, so from 60 to 79, they tend to have some kind of political transition, whether Generation Z, which has been born before 2010, they like the mobility, the multiple reality, social network, and so on. I am personally reluctant to add my social networks connections to the courses I provide to my homepage on the university, but some other new academic or student, they would love to have that. Now, this is not to say this is wrong or right, but this is the differences that we have between different generations. Again, the behavior between people who have been born between the 1940 to 59, as someone who's more of idealism toward the people who are going to undefined identity or being more realistic and from Generation Z. This again, also different if I just move this picture as well, in the consumption of the information that we have. So that difference is just a very high level of abstract. Again, if I go to my class, while I have just at least 50 students in my class, I'll find a lot of differences between those students. So what I can do, I can't capture this information because usually when you go to class, we tend to see some differences. When we use AI technology, we record each interaction with any of the system that the student use. And as a result of that, I can know Rawad is using the system most likely in the afternoon session rather than in the morning session. And based on certain algorithms, I can make some kind of deduction. Possibly he's doing some work, he's a part-time student, or he has some certain issues within his environment that do not allow him to do his job in the early morning. Now, that's not the issue, because even attending the session online, whether it's online session, attending the session even in the evening or the afternoon, that's not the main issue. The main issue is Rawad is struggling to understand some concept, and then our systems that we have at the university at the moment, and the majority of our universities, are not clever enough to see Rawad has tried this quiz 3 times, but he failed. Why did that happen? Can we rectify this? Can we provide him with a customized learning experience to improve his learning and his interaction with the systems? Now, again, there are some other students who just not struggling to learn some concept. They are trying to find peers to work with. And here is the more brilliant role that AI can play with. We have a new feature in Microsoft Teams that we use, and I Zoom, this is a breakout room, where we try to have a big class, and then after the big class, I'll give the floor to students to discuss some issues, to discuss some problems, and then go out for small groups, discuss things, and come back to me. Now this is working randomly. There is no base for that. There is no way to say, student, we need to divide you while we maintain the differences between you. We need to have, for example, a group of 5 students where one of them will be, let's say, a high professional. He or she has some good experience in industry. Another one have a good project management skills. And another one should have some kind of different skill or some other lower capabilities. So in that kind of variety between students, we make sure that there are some skill to be transferred between one to another. So there is no base for dividing student to group. And again, also, this is a time-consuming process. If I work with students and ask them to divide themselves into groups, they will tend to work with the same group every time. And if that happens again, then this to be like a one-man show if at the end of the day. So these are the key differences that we will try to find between students, and why we need to do that in order to make sure that their learning experiences are better online rather than going to campus. Going to next slide. We know that there are a lot of issues we will face in the market in the very couple, let's say, next 5 years or 10 years. We have some factors that we've listened in the market that 30%, 35% of skill demand for job across all industry will change in 2020. And that was just a study published by 2018. Now we're already in 2020. There is a slowdown because of this kind of pandemic, but we know that there are big changes now in the market. Even I've seen a post last week, I guess, that they want to hire someone who's working in software engineering, and the education required is none. So you don't need to have any degree. You don't need to go to any school. You'll just be given a task to do it in order to get that job. Now, again, that might be not ideal. Also, it's not valid for all other jobs because this might be a lower kind of programming skill that is required, but this is going to be more and more in the future. So are we going to stop educating people and say, this is just only what you need to do? You just need to go to work and produce the work that you've been trying to do? I don't think this is the reality of what we'd like to do. The reality of what we'd like to do is to equip our educational system with a proper way to capture student differences, know what we are after as an academic organization, know what we want to offer to our students, and also employ AI techniques to customize our learning experiences to students. So I design my course in this way. So let's say this is a PowerPoint presentation, lesson number 1 in software engineering module. And this in its current design, it should be delivered just only in one way. But if I design this in a very flexible way, that kind of design need to be changed and adopted by AI techniques to make sure that student X learn in certain way, while student B can group within a team in order to learn because they tend to learn in a social environment. That's something that we are doing in AI. Again, one of the issues that we face and we are facing in a very, very disruptive way at the moment is responding to students' comments and questions. And to do that, we have developed a framework for chatbot in education. We have used multiple platforms like Alexa and other Microsoft Azure. And the main reason for that is just to minimize the intervention done by the instructor or the professors, we need the computer to respond to the key questions. So if I have FAQ, frequent asked questions, for example, and that FAQ is prepared and published somewhere, the application, the intelligent application, can get these questions, keep them in the memory, and then when student ask the student, when the student asks the professors about any kind of issues related to the module, submission date, these are called kind of basic questions, then chatbot can respond to that. Now there is a key issue here. This kind of chatbot is good for customer service, is good for other stuff, but they are not good for learning purposes because they don't retain information about the student and they have no kind of pedagogy to support these algorithms. This is another area we are trying to resolve at the moment by using natural language processing, where we analyze and understand the languages. And at the moment, I'm supervising one of the PhD students who's investigating different kind of understanding for the languages and try to look at this from a learning perspective, not just only because some of the questions may be sent in a very different way if we are talking in a business domain or if we are informally discussing any other point. So the main issue here is just to look at this problem from an educational perspective and put the pedagogy at the center of that, while learners are the core and almost everything here. And this is what we are trying to do in our solution. So our framework here, I keep shifting these kind of pictures, so I'll download them here. So all of the AI techniques that we will be trying to do here just to allow our student with a better experience, okay, and make our solution scalable, because I can't teach 600 students, but using AI, I can probably minimize that disruption. So our solution will focus on 5 things. It's a framework using AI in education. We'll focus on people, on our student, on our lecturers as well, to help them scale, and also we'll develop our processes in order to make sure that our processes fit for our purpose. The main issues we have at the moment, whatever process we have at the university, they are not flexible enough. For example, we have the support process. If students have any issues, they will email the support. I can't submit my assignment at the moment. And then they will say, okay, log a ticket and we'll come back to you within 3 to 5 working days. What will happen if the student have a submission deadline tomorrow? Okay, now you might say he or she should contact the support earlier. That's true, but that's not happening for all the students. And again, if the deadline is tomorrow, I'm not obliged to, I'll do my work today, but the deadline is tomorrow. So I should be able to do it. Now, again, these kind of issues with the processes, if we are on campus, I can go to what we call student hub or student support, and then they will fix it to me while I'm dealing with them face to face. But if they have a very long list of student tickets in their system, they will not be able to respond to that. Again, our processes, if we modify our processes, we need to go back to the goal of our institutions. I think the model mentioned by Professor Manuel is having some kind of partnership in order to open the borders for other organizations to collaborate, for other students to join the university, for other academic to be part of the university, is something we need to look into. Again, institutions also need to understand and recognize the need to invest in AI more and more. At the moment, we are trying to buy black box technologies rather than invent our own solutions, okay? And that will reflect also on the data that we are using, the privacy, and also the kind of GDPR rule and so on. And at the top of that, we will have the technology where we can say, yes, we will be using all of these kind of black box software systems, but we will be adding our own inventions in that way. And that's something we need to do. We are trying to develop at the moment the chatbot. We have done some implementation for that. We also develop a prototype for capturing student characteristics and customize the learning strategies for learners based on their capabilities and their goals. But this also just is a part of the research that we are doing. We hope to get some kind of tangible outputs maybe in the next few months based on the experiment that we are doing. So here are some description for the things that we have. So again, just to make short time here. AI can help us a lot in solving the problem that we are trying to solve here. Face-to-face education is good. Online learning is good as well, but if we spend the time and the effort in order to plan for it and make it properly designed and publish. So future direction, we're going to more of technology support here. We will try to work collaboratively, use some kind of blockchain technology, and also try to get rid of the focus to on what we call on-premises, the focus to on-campus activity. We will try to have this kind of hybrid approach. We call it in the University of East London dual delivery, where we can deliver the content to students on campus, and at the same time who are joining us, whoever joins us during using the online platform, they will be able to learn, and they will be able to get the benefit, should be in the same way that the student on campus is getting. So we will try to invest more and more to make this kind of hybrid learning environment possible between two different options. Student spaces will change a lot in the future. So students are expected to be sitting at home, sitting at cafes, working their own ways, trying to use technology to collaborate with each other. I've seen some students working on teams in different places. So a group of 5, 2 of them on campus, 3 of them are working from their homes or their cafes and whatever they want. And then the result and the outcome is I can't say at the moment it's the same level of on-campus group and work, but again, the skills that they are gaining at the moment are really, really good skills. They learn how to work with each other in a group. They learn how to collaborate with each other. They learn how to put their priorities and how to make their discussion more fruitful. On campus, you can see in one scenario, you'll see the one-man show who's leading everything. Now, this is not possible with a hybrid approach between student on campus and online. So this is just only a quick presentation, 20 minutes now, and I think this over. Time is over now. So thank you so much for inviting me to present this presentation. I'll be happy to answer your questions, and unfortunately I'll leave around 2, so if there will be any questions, I'll be happy to take them on board if that's the case. So I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rawad, for this very informative and insightful presentation. You took us through different levels and different aspects of the remote learning, of the online learning. You took it from different perspectives. I like the beautiful triangulation where you have presented the concept of online learning from the student perspective, from the institution perspective, and also from all the stakeholders' perspective. If you are going to leave, and if you would love to receive your questions now, I can open the floor for the questions, because certainly we have a lot of questions to ask about this concept of artificial intelligence and how it's going to add value. And certainly it's going to add a lot of value for education post-COVID. Let's talk after the COVID-19, because we needed to have that forward-looking and to be very proactive and to prepare ourselves for the future. As an exception, since Dr. Rawad is going to leave, we will open now the floor for discussion, and then we'll move on to our third presenter, who is Dr. Sima, to close with her for her presentation, and then we'll come back again to the session, to the question answer, because we want also to come back to Professor Emmanuel and also to Dr. Sima for the questions. So any questions, our audience, to Dr. Rawad regarding artificial intelligence, online learning, and this, let's say, new situation and the new normal?
I think you got Dr. Alexandra raising her hand.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this lovely presentation, very informative, Dr. Rawad. So, and very appealing as well. From my personal viewpoint, I'm teaching on huge modules, and I would love some of your innovations or the ones that you're currently working. So please keep me in a loop. I'll be very much interested on those 300+ modules. But the question that I have is this whole approach requiring a wider conversation, if you wish? and transparency in terms of students and how they are part of those new developments and those new initiatives, and are they really a part of the conversation in what is important shift into a completely different approach to learning, and what we could definitely be able to discuss in either kind of a a realm of, is this going into the idea of surveilling students, or is it our idea of showing care and really caring for that experience, and that's why that personalization is important. So what do you think about that?
So yeah, thank you so much for this interesting questions. I think students also, one of the differences between students is the way that they perceive the information and the way they understand why we implement these kind of changes to them. Some of them are understanding that this is just only the last resort for us as academic organization to keep them and retain them in the university. Some of them are considering this as the best innovation that we are doing with them in order to help them learn more and more and achieve their goals. One of the key things I found with my students as well, they interpret things differently. So when we give them some kind of directions, make things clear to them, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and a lot of these steps are not related to the subject that we are teaching them. Step just like, organize your way to how do you want to have your group, some kind of criteria for group. If you've been given a task, how do you want to analyze that task? Look at the objectives of that task before you start the task straight away, and then link this with the learning objectives of the module. So there are multiple layers, we call them hierarchy here. So instead of going to lesson number 5 and see this is the lesson number 5 learning objectives, learning objective, let's say number 1 or 2, there is a task here. Look at this task a little bit before you try to solve this. Link it with the learning objective for this lesson and for the learning objective of the whole modules, and see what kind of knowledge that you need to gain about that. These kind of what we call metacognitive skills, we are trying to focus more and more on now when we are developing our e-learning content. To be honest, before what we have done in order to move to online learning, the majority of our academics were just trying to present this and deal with the student based on their interaction and based on their questions and answers. There was no capability, I would say, or no need to capture what kind of needs students they have at the moment from one perspective or another. Can we link students together in order to help each other in order to develop their skills? I receive a lot of questions from students as well. They have some students, in their group, they don't need to interact. And I told them this is the benefit of COVID-19. And when they asked me why, I said, okay, now you've been offered a job now, okay, and you have a company, team of 10. There is no guarantee that the 10 people in your team will be collaborating with you. Are you going to reject the offer? Are you going to leave your job, or will continue working with them? They said, we will continue to work with them. Okay, and this is the same scenario here. On-campus activity allowed you to avoid that, okay? Move away from those students, try to regroup with other students. Now, with online learning environment, you have to face that issue early enough not in your career, in your education. So you need to find some workaround in order to work with this. We recognize this with the number of hits of the student using the system, the number of their interactions, and we also develop, or we didn't develop that. There is a multimodal learning analytics tools where we can look at the eye tracking system and see where the students are focusing on something, or they just attend the session just for the sake of attendance and getting that attendance ticked box. But
And do they know that?
to be honest, this is just a prototype. We have a lot of ethical issues to approve that. And not all the students. We have just set this on campus for a couple or 3 students. They were happy with that. And these are, the students are studying technology, so they would like to learn by themselves about that. But to be honest, any kind of development, any kind of adoption for these technologies, we will face a lot of ethical issues, especially our institutions are not ready. And I'm not talking about UEL here at the moment or my university. A lot of other universities refuse to have these kind of what they call privacy related technology. So this is one of the issues, I guess, we need to solve at the institutional level, and especially if we make this adoption optional, then we'll see more and more students joining the whole scenario. Hopefully I answered your questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rawad. I can see Professor Natalie who wants to ask a question. Please go ahead. Professor is raising his hand. Professor Natalie, are you here? I have a question in here from Dr. Sima. So she said, which artificial intelligence intervention you have been considering in your research on education projects? Meanwhile, waiting for Professor Natalie to join.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a good question. We use a lot of different technologies. One of them is the Ontology. Ontology is the way in AI to capture the student information, and not just student information, anyone who's using the system, and put that in an abstract level that is completely separate from technology. So we do that when we, for example, have, these are technical jargon. If we have a database, for example, or we have any legacy system that we use at the moment without AI, we capture this kind of information. But the problem is they are embedded within the technology. So what we have in this layer is to have two different layers: technology layer, which we don't care about what kind of technology you use, and the ontology will be separate in any other layer, in a different layer. So we capture information about student, about professors, about whoever part of this kind of community, and then at the end of the day we get that kind of customization. We call them recommender system, and these recommender systems work for students, work for academics, work for group leaders like teacher assistant or teaching assistant. We recommend resources, learning resources, for example, and also we recommend peers. So if this is a task that needs to be done in a group, you need to group in a member of 5, then I can see some kind of recommendation for the peers that I would like to work with. These are things that we can use in AI. Also analytics, learning analytics, using machine learning to understand the student behavior, understand what kind of expectation we'll see from student. These are different things that we also use in AI, in addition to the natural language processing, using chatbot, basically.
Thank you. So, Professor,
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. And thanks very much, Professor, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And I like the way you brought in the issue of design science in terms of delivering to our learners. And you did also compare two SDG goals, that is SDG 4, providing universal and inclusive and lifelong learning, versus SDG 8, that deals with the decent work and workspaces. And you also did say that if you are going to deliver training to students face-to-face, the kind of work that you have to do is probably a lot more than what you will do when you are using online or virtual systems. So I'm just asking, I wanted to get this from you. Don't you think there is a contradiction between achieving SDG 4 and SDG 8 during COVID-19 pandemic, and what's likely to happen thereafter?
I wouldn't say kind of contradiction, but these are big challenges, and there are no clear answers for these kind of challenges. To be honest, we can say these kind of issues that I've just tried to touch today, they have been researched for more than half a decade, okay? And also the way that we learn as students, so I'm just turning on my battery is about to die here. So the way we learn more about how do we learn, how do we achieve our learning activity is different. So if I look how students were perceiving their education 50 years ago or 30 years ago, and compare this with what we have today in school, you'll find this completely different, or not completely different, but to a very large extent it's different. So what we are trying to do at the moment is trying to keep student or minimize the disruption and minimize the gap between the work experience and life experience and their education. And by no ways, if we are saying we are doing this online education, we are spending less time to prepare content. I'm myself, when I shifted to online learning, I probably put the double time to prepare my content and maybe triple. And that's the same for students. My main worry here is the transferable skill that we have when we go to campus cannot be compared with online. So transferable skill, you talk with your colleagues about so many things. You learn about their professional experience. I know in many groups that students who are working in Amazon, in Microsoft, even in simple, let's say simple jobs, they are not very sophisticated jobs. They learn a lot from their work environment. Now, again, Microsoft last month announced that Microsoft company will allow everyone to work from home permanently. Now, the main question here, what about the transferable skill? What about the behavior of the employees coming from one good employer? What is the role of the model in that company? And this is similar to our student. If you haven't met your student, how do you know if they've learned a lot in terms of their personality, how they develop their skills? And this is not just related to the subject you are teaching to them, the way that they learn. If I go to the university and I see my lecturer or my professor coming every day or whenever we have a lecture, 9 a.m. sharply, then this is a message for me that you need to be very timely when you deal with any person, okay? If I see someone who's working always on deadline or by deadline, then this is also another thing that we see and we learn from it, and even indirectly, but we learn from it. Now, this is all missing in online environment. So again, there are a lot of challenges on the online, and I wouldn't expect these challenges to disappear in the next couple of the next 10 years or something. There will be more challenges because the kind of pandemic we have, the kind of learning environment, the challenges that we have will continue more and more. So I think what we can do just to investigate and keep ourselves, develop a technology, prototype, test, and then rectify what we have learned based on what we have learned from the experiment. A lot of AI tools at the moment are in the prototype. Unfortunately, we gained some fund, develop tools, do some minimum experiment. Sometimes we don't do that experiment, and then we keep that tool on the side, and then we move to another problem. But we didn't get the full benefit because we do not put that technology in place for a year or two. Let students experiment with that and then make that extended experiment work for all of us, because we analyze the result and make sure that we have learned everything from what we have done. This is something is very challenging in the AI at the moment, because we don't have that kind of sustainability in doing AI project. It's just funded by one or two organizations. Once the project is done, that's it. So there's a lot of gap here in transferring the lessons we've learned from one project to another.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Rawad. Any other questions? So I have one comment so far. First of all, I can see everyone is really thanking you for this very informative and very wonderful presentation. You have mentioned the World Economic Forum skills, and I have in front of me the very latest one, which is just published about the 2025 learning, or let's say top 20 or top 10 skills for the future. And I can see no one of them is related to content, and as you said, to knowledge. It's all about analytical skills. It's all about creativity. It's all about innovation. It's all about leadership. It has to do with the technology use, the resilience, stress tolerance, and the flexibility, and also problem solving and ideation, which are all, as you said, acquired somehow through the what we are going, as you said, transferable skills. It requires sort of interaction from the students. Also, you talked about Generation Z. Today, we are expecting to have Generation Alpha. Remote learning is not only for universities, it's as well for schools, higher education, which is more challenging. Now, from your perspective, as an expert in technology, artificial intelligence, what would be your advice to, let's say, top management, those who are taking the lead or leading higher institutions or leading schools or leading any educational institution to prepare themselves for the future? Because as I said, Today we have the Generation Z. They are more of Google children's. Tomorrow we will have more of Generation Alpha who are more technology oriented. What would be your advice? What are the potential scenarios that we may face, and to be ready for that as educational key players, or let's say, as I said, leaders within the educational field?
Thank you so much. Very big questions here, but I would summarize this because
Yes.
yeah, depending on technology a lot, also we will have a shallow or superficial. So if you look, for example, at Facebook, you look at the discussion it's good for discussion, it's good for talking between people, that's fine, good. But then if we tend just keeping this kind of chit chat approach, there will be no learning, no deep discussion between people. And this is what we face at the moment. If we look at if you look at the institution, higher education institution, let's say 30 years ago, the philosophy of learning was just to give everything that we need to learn at the university. And then when I move to the work, I should be ready there. They should test me fully. And then if I'm ready to work, then they will hire me. Now, this is changing now. We have less learning at the university and more learning at the workplace. And if we continue doing that, we will minimize the role of higher education in our life, which is, in my view, is wrong, because we need to keep student learning not just only knowledge, not only transferable skill, the critical way of of thinking. You need to critique what you have been learning. You need to see how I'm thinking as a lecturer here, and criticize me and provide me with your own view, not just only about technology, about the way we work with each other, about the philosophy of life. And this is why we learn. This is why we send our children to school. If we just want them to learn about how to calculate mathematical equations and do X and Y and Z, we can watch any YouTube videos, and we can do this kind of resources review, and then we recommend these resources for them. No, the life is much, much bigger than the technology. Technology can try to solve some of the issues that we need to solve, and this is the main thing that I would recommend. All of these kind of leaders need to draw the boundaries between where technology should work better, where human and interaction and kind of social life need to work better as well. Any successful manager, if I had to say that about in my life, I didn't see any successful manager who was very brilliant in his knowledge, but he has no social interaction with his team or her team. And that does reflect how people work with each other. We need both things. We need to keep the balance between our learning, our life, our social activities, and between technology. If we keep using technology and pushing technology for everything because technology can do things better for us, again, we will feel at some point we are disconnected because technology cannot do everything better for us. So a lot of big debates here, and I'm happy that this presentation kicks a lot of questions. And I think many of these questions could go for a lot of recommendation paper or white paper later on that can be published and guide some of our institution on how to develop better e-learning systems.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rawad, for the feedback, for the answer, and for everything.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.